Ayya Anandabodhi, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan.
It's a pleasure to have you here. So I was interested just to give listeners a little peek behind the curtain here. Very frequently, when we have a guest, and the guest doesn't have a book that we can draw from, one of our producers, in this case, Marissa, the mighty Marissa Schneiderman, reached out to you, and you guys had a conversation. What would you like to talk about? And then Marissa writes me up a memo, and I was reading the memo, and it says right away that your chosen subject, what you wanted to talk about, was centering in difficult times, in the midst of what I would call like a shitstorm, but probably not a dharmic term. So I'm just curious, why? It may be slightly obvious, but why did you pick centering?
Yeah, I think centering because I meet with people here. We have people who come to practice meditation together and discuss Dharma, and then there's time to talk about what's going on and how people are bringing their practice to their lives. And of course, what's going on right now in the US is very chaotic and stressful, and there's quite a lot of fear, and people not really knowing what to do, how not knowing what to do with themselves, how to stay centered and grounded in the midst of this. And what I found was that people were, particularly maybe just a few weeks ago, people's center of gravity was in the news. So they were leaning into, it was just like, what's next, and now what's happening, and now, and so they were losing their centeredness and losing connection with their own body, their own agency, really, and being pulled into this kind of vortex of chaos that was coming through the news, that is still coming through the news. And it was kind of an aha when I heard that. I was like, if your center of gravity is, between yourself and the screen, or just in the news, you're kind of groundless, and that makes you weak. I feel one of the really important things at this time is that people don't lose their power and agency. This is what we all need to keep and rediscover. So I wanted to talk about centeredness because there are ways that we can center in our body, in the present, that reconnect us with our own strength and our own power, our own agency. And that's what we need to do right now. Always, really, but especially now.
Yeah, that's a really interesting concept. It's like we're outsourcing our, as you call it, center of gravity to the miasma of social media and the news.
Yes. Yep. And then people feel powerless, confused, powerless, anxious. And then when you're in that place, it's almost like it creates its own, it's like that. In some ways, it seems to me that there's an intention. That's what is wanted, that people do feel powerless, that people do feel that they don't have agency. But actually, we do have agency. We're human beings.
I'm interested in your choice of language. So you chose the word centering. Is that synonymous with words like calm or equanimity, to be a little bit more Buddhist about it, or are there distinctions?
I think it's not synonymous. It's a way to it's the first step of approach to calmness and equanimity. So say there's a feeling of anxiety, you're looking at the news, it all feels really desperate. Maybe your life has been radically changed, or the life of people have been radically changed suddenly, and the trajectory feels dangerous, and frightening. And so anxiety arises. So if we're not able to just lean back a little bit and center, then that feeling of anxiety just moves us into, okay, what else how can I get rid of this feeling? So maybe we watch something else. Maybe we're just doom scrolling, and so that sort of justifies the feeling. Or maybe maybe people get into addictive habits that something that eases their uncomfortable feeling of anxiety. Whereas when you're centered, when you can find a bit of centering in the belly, in the present, in the belly, in the body, then, okay, the anxiety is still there. You can feel that anxiety, and it's really unpleasant. And it's like this. And you're not running. It's like this, and it feels like this, and I don't like it. And it feels like this. And I'm still here, and I'm still breathing, and I can feel my feet on the ground. and I still have my loved ones around me or whatever, and I still have, even if who knows what people are losing right now, but you still have this moment, still have this body, still have this presence. So that gives a context within which to feel the uncomfortable feeling, and then as you come into alignment with it, it gives the potential. Like, I'm not saying it's always going to happen, because it depends on your history and so on, but trauma and various levels, but it gives the potential for that anxiety to start to just be energy, because it's all just energy essentially. So that anxiety can start to turn into presence, strength, confidence, maybe even a certain excitement. Anxiety and excitement are very, very close to each other, actually. So anxiety has that leaning back, fear, and then excitement has that same sort of trembling, but it's leaning forward into the possibility of what might come. So there are these ways that we don't have to get stuck, But if we're not centered, we sort of, it's like we leave ourselves. We're somewhere else, and the mind is somewhere else, because the body's feeling these not very nice feelings, So bringing body and mind together.
You literally cannot hear this enough. It is kind of Dharma or mindfulness 101, but in my opinion, you cannot hear this enough, because it's so counterintuitive. We want, for justifiable self-protective reasons, to self-medicate with, drugs,
Anything.
alcohol,
Yeah,
shopping, scrolling, gambling, whatever it is. And yet the greatest source of comfort is to do this supremely counterintuitive thing of feeling the thing you don't want to, that you're trying to escape.
That's very true. That's that first noble truth that the Buddha points to, the beginning of the transformation of the path. Yeah. And also what's really important is that what we're talking about is a feeling. A feeling. So feelings are so transient and ephemeral, and yet they can feel so major and important and everything that we people can end up destroying their lives because they can't bear to feel a feeling. And if you think about, say, I don't know if you've ever had a difficult, like a painful accident, something where you broke a leg or cut yourself or something, and it hurt. So if you try and feel what that feels like now. So I broke my leg a long time ago. If I try and feel what that feels like, I can't feel it. It's gone. It's finished. So we're afraid to feel. We're afraid to turn towards those feelings, because they become so big in our minds. But if we turn towards them, there's what is it? It's a sensation. It's unpleasant. It's changing, and it's going to end. Whether we run away from it or not, all of those things are the same.
It's reminding me of a process I've been going through recently. I have panic disorder, and it gets touched off a lot in small spaces. I'm actually having dinner tonight. I not infrequently go have dinner when she's in town, when she's in New York City, with Sharon Salzberg, an amazing meditation teacher. Tonight, actually, it's a double whammy, a double bill with Sharon Salzberg and Sylvia Boorstein, so it should be fun.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Lots of Jews in the house tonight. And Sharon has this diabolically small elevator. And so I've been thinking for a couple of days about this elevator. And often I take the stairs, which is the worst thing to do. You are teaching the brain to be scared. But I am not going to take the stairs tonight. And it's like, okay, let it rip. If panic is also just a feeling.
It's true.
Set of feelings are incredibly uncomfortable.
And I'm sure you've got lots of clever tricks up your sleeve to manage it, but it still does what it does, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I have a pair of fast-acting Klonopin tablets in my pocket. Just it's comforting to know they're there. I won't use them, but yeah, I've got all sorts of tricks. But really, the trick,
yes,
is just let it in,
right.
And it's like when my cat, has his claw under the door to my bedroom and is rattling the door, wants to get in. And I hate the fucking cat in that moment. And then I open the door and he comes in, sniffs a little bit and walks away. And it's kind of like that with our feelings.
Right, very well put. Yeah, very much so.
established quite a bit here, but the natural question, which helpfully your memo, the one that you and Marissa put together, the obvious question in the face of everything we've just established is, how do you do this? And you list a number of very helpful and, yeah, I think very powerful suggestions. The first of which is nature. So I'm curious, maybe the list was in a random order, or maybe not. How did nature get to the top of the list?
It's probably a random order. I'm a bit like that. We are nature. Our bodies are nature. We survive through eating what grows from nature, breathing the air, which is nature, drinking water, which is nature. So we're nature. We're a part of nature. We've never been separate from nature, but we often live as though we are separate from nature. Uh-huh. So, and that's got more and more so over the years. To live in a city is created from the ideas and imaginations and creativity and brilliance of humans. That's what creates a city. And then we might have decided, put a tree here and a park there, but basically it's designed by people. And then we live in buildings that are often made of man-made products that are designed, the buildings are designed by people. And then we're online, and we're watching what people are creating. So this is all sort of human stuff. And humans are part of nature, but we've sort of created our sort of alternative world here within the world of nature. And the more we go into that, the more disconnected we can become from our true nature, what we are. And true nature has different levels. So there's the true nature of just like a human body, what it needs to survive, and a human being. And then there's like the deeper true nature, which we may or may not go into, I don't know. But basically, because we are nature and we are part of nature and we belong to nature, if we go and spend time with a tree or take our shoes off and stand on the earth, or just go outside for a minute and look at the sun, or maybe not look at the sun, but just look at the sky, it changes us. So I don't know if you've ever tried, I don't know what your living situation is, but if ever when you're having a panic attack or when you're thinking about having a panic attack, you've ever gone and lay down on the ground and felt the support of the ground beneath you.
I love to lay down on the ground. And my living situation is highly conducive to this in that we live in the country. However, most of the places where I get panic are very man-made, airplanes and elevators, so it's not an option.
Which is interesting, yeah. Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm. So then remembering that we are nature, this body. So okay, can't go outside and lay down on the ground, but the body is part of this. It's this, as the Buddha says, made up of the four great elements: earth, water, fire, and air. That's what the body's made of, and it's not just a concept; this is reality. So what this is made of is the same as what the building is made of, and what the earth is made of, and the trees, and the whatever, the computer that we're talking to each other on. It's all made of these. It's a simple way of putting it in the Buddha's time, of those four elements, but it's simple, but its simplicity helps us to find the truth of it. So you can also come back here to this body. So say I'm feeling anxious or a bit afraid, and then I come back to my body and I'm feeling trembling legs, and my feet feel like there's little cushions of air beneath and they're not quite on the ground, and then I can recognize that, and then okay, where can I find some presence? So for me, feet is a really good one. So I used to feel like I had those little cushions of air, but now I can just say, okay, just feeling my feet in contact with the ground. And it's far from my head, so there's no thoughts in the feet. And I'm not up here thinking about my feet. I bring my awareness down into the feet. And I can feel the feet in contact with the ground, and maybe they feel a little trembly. And it's like, okay, and then the ground feels pretty stable. And then I can invite a more of a connection. You can even imagine roots going down if you like to, but just having a sense of connection to the ground. Another way is with the breath, taking a conscious breath. Because often also if we're stressed or anxious, then the diaphragm gets tight, and then the breathing's up here. we're not really taking the full body. The full body isn't taking the breath, it's just like this. So put a hand on your belly. See if you can breathe down into your belly and breathe out. And the belly, I mean, in the Chinese tradition, is the belly center is known as the dantian. It's like an energy center, just a couple of finger breaths below the navel and a little bit inside. And I think in the Sufi tradition they call it the calf, and it's like an energy center that's the place of grounding. So I think a lot of people, they're living up here, it's all, the center of gravity is in the head or outside the head sometimes. And so we want to bring that center of gravity down into the belly, into the, not just on the edge of the belly, but right inside. And then you find that it's like, the pelvis starts to relax, and there's more of a sense of connection, and the diaphragm starts to soften, and so you can breathe more fully. So this is a place you can actually use that as a meditation. You can there's a technique that you hold. So you have, let's see if we can do that. You have your hands. So maybe you hold that thumb. You hold the thumb of the right hand, and you wrap the right hand around the left hand.
Okay, just for the listeners, you are holding up your left hand.
Yes.
And then the thumb is dangling down.
Yes.
And you use your right hand to wrap around the thumb.
And then you wrap your right hand around your left hand so that they're just sort of holding each other.
Okay.
And then you bring that down to your dantian, to that point, a couple of inches below the belly button. And then when you breathe, you imagine you're breathing into that spot there, or you connect your breathing with that place. So your hands are resting right against the belly. You don't have to imagine it. You can feel them. And then you're kind of breathing in connection with that place. Almost breathing into there.
It does feel good.
Good. I'm glad it's helpful. And that's, you can do that as a practice every day. Spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. 20 minutes is excellent, because then it really gets going. And so spending some time every day doing that practice, and it builds on itself.
I buy that completely. Just to recap, you've gone through 3 techniques that we can use to center ourselves. And I want to go click deeper on several of them. One was nature, as the kids say, touch grass. There's something about getting out in nature that is really centering. And that's the one I want to go deeper on in a second. But you also, just to recap, mentioned bringing mindfulness to your feet and explain why that's powerful. And then taking deep breaths. Taking conscious breaths, conscious deep breaths, and pausing. Actually, there's another way, but maybe we can get to that in a minute. Well, no, go. We'll give. I'll keep notes on what we should get back to. You go with what's coming into your head. Yeah, a pause is also very good. So we've spoken about anxiety mainly so far, but I think also what comes up for people is anger. People get really angry, and then get caught up in this anger because they feel powerless, frustrated. It shouldn't be like this, and it's all kind of justified, but it doesn't help. So if we're caught in anger and then we feel powerless, then what are we going to do? So when there's a lot of anger, it's not very different actually. That the actual techniques are similar, but when you're caught in anger, it's really important to take a pause for a moment. So I visited prisons earlier on in my monastic life as a Buddhist nun, and sometimes there were people in those prisons who were, their life circumstances were challenging. They had a lot of challenges, and they made a decision. They did something because they didn't pause for a moment. It's like if they'd known that they could actually just pause for a moment, feel a feeling, know a thought as a thought, and not follow it, then they would have been in a very different situation. And it does, again, involve feeling this unpleasant feeling. That's just part of it. But you're empowering yourself to feel that and not act on it. And it's amazingly powerful and strengthening when there's that anger, and then you
you're not shutting it down. So shutting anger down doesn't work. It just explodes at some point, or you get sick. But acting on anger doesn't work either. You create more and more harm, more and more chaos. And there's a beautiful simile in the Dhammapada, in the Buddha's teachings, where the Buddha says, one who is able to control their anger or manage their anger is like a true charioteer. So in the Buddha's time, there weren't cars and stuff; there were chariots, or you walked. And so you can just imagine, like you're standing there, you got these powerful horses, and you're guiding them. And if you don't really know what you're doing, you end up in the ditch, But if you're skillful, then you can use the power of those horses. You don't want to shoot those horses. You want the power of those horses, and then you guide it in the right direction. So you can guide it towards something beneficial. But you can only do that if you know how to be with that feeling and take a pause. So I wanted to bring that element in as well.
I just want to reemphasize the word you used, empowering. In my experience, which is limited, especially compared to yours.
Different.
Okay, different. Thank you for the reframing. This uncomfortable, counterintuitive move of feeling whatever it is you don't want to feel, anxiety or anger, and realizing it doesn't kill you, it comes and goes, is immensely empowering. I was doing a therapy session today with somebody who's helping me with the big panic stuff, and he knew I was going to Sharon's house to ride the elevator tonight. And as we were signing off, he said, "Go kick that elevator's ass." And yeah, that might seem a little aggressive in a Buddhist context, but what the spirit of it was, it was like, let it rip, man. Like, you can handle these feelings that you've been running from. And that's the ass kicking.
Yes. Yeah.
We're talking about anger. I'll go back to nature in a second, but since we're talking about anger, and this kind of goes back to what I said earlier, which is this is Dharma 101 that we literally, in my opinion, cannot hear enough. In part because I've heard this a million times and I forget to do it all the time. And so how do I stop forgetting to apply what I know is the most successful technique?
Well, what I found is to see what happens when you don't follow it. So one of the things in the Buddha's path of teaching that I find really helpful is that he doesn't just pick out the nice bits. It's not just like, oh, if you do this, you'll get a really lovely experience and then you're going to get enlightened. It's like, watch the whole process of something. So say I'm feeling angry. Somebody does something and it triggers me and I'm angry. And then I just say something. I just spit out my anger at that person. Then that person's going to, it's going to land on them. They're going to receive that energy. They're either going to hate me for it or fear me or start fighting with me. It's not going to have any good results. I've been a nun a long time now, so I've had lots of opportunities to learn. But long ago, I would do those things, and then I would experience the repercussions of it. And because the teaching is so much about knowing what's going on, watch the whole process, then I'd see it like, oh, you do that, you say that, you get that result, and then you get into this complicated relationship which you really don't want to be in, and it's really hard to get out of. And do I want to do that again? No, not really. So to look back at your life, or look at what's going on now in your life, and see what are the results of following that same old pattern. Is it leading you to more freedom? Or is it getting more entangled? Or are you moving more and more towards addiction? That's another way that we avoid those feelings is to keep running after a pleasant feeling. Those pleasant feelings, they are pleasant for a few minutes or a few seconds or a few moments, and then we're back with the original again. I see it as kind of clearing out the garage. It's like it's full of stuff. It's all cluttered up with all kinds of stuff that in here, in our body and mind, it's just, it can be just full of all this stuff, and we want to just like not open that garage and just go to the nice, sunny room. But there it is, So if you actually go there and do the tedious work and maybe dirty work of clearing that out, then you've got a nice space. that's useful. So it's similar with our minds and hearts.
It's a really fascinating first step that you're advising here. Instead of, in the context of you're looking at the news and you feel rage, or you're at the office and your boss is a dick, or whatever it is, like, your advice, if I'm hearing you correctly, isn't wagging your finger and, you must remember to pause. Actually, your advice is, yeah, you know what? Maybe as a first step, do what you normally do, but with this little tweak, be mindful of it as you're doing your habitual actions. Like, what does it get you? What's the payoff? And then once the mind is attuned to the suffering of our habitual modes of handling difficult emotions, it might be more receptive to what I keep calling this sort of counterintuitive but healthy move of pausing, feeling your feelings, and then doing something saner on the other side.
Kind of. I mean, what I'm really saying is, I'm not really encouraging you to go out and do those same old things. But if you have to, then do them. If sometimes we can't help it. But if you can not do that and experience and try a different way, it's much better. But sometimes we can't, and we're just going to do that same old thing. But then yes, if you have to do it again, watch the whole process, and see where it leads and see what it takes you to. But you might be able to think of a past process and not have to keep, do that one extra.
Right. When Marissa asked you in reading this document that you and Marissa prepared in collaboration, when Marissa asked you, you were explaining to her in the course of this document, the importance of pausing when you're pissed. And Marissa asked what I asked. I basically copied Marissa. She asked you, like, well, I know this. Marissa's a serious Dharma student. She's heard this a million times, but I keep forgetting to do it. And one of the things you said to her was, this can be a motivation to practice with more zeal. The Pali term, the technical term in the language of Pali, which is the language in which the Buddhist teachings were written down, is Chandra. It's kind of like a positive version of desire to practice. Can you say, first of all, am I recapitulating that correctly? And second, would you be willing to, expand upon it?
So yeah, Chandra or Chanda in Pali, Chandra in Sanskrit, Chanda in Pali is just this energy to transform the old patterns, to get out of the old patterns. So there's a quote again from the Buddha. He says, "Get yourself out of this mess, like an elephant would haul itself out of the mud." And I think that's kind of summed it up. It's like, just imagine it. There's an elephant stuck in the mud. It's not going to just get out easily. It's got to work at it. It's got to really try really hard, and probably going to make a lot of noise in the meantime. But eventually, it's going to get out. So get yourself out of this mess, like an elephant hauls itself out of the mud. So once you kind of know you're in the mud, this is a key element. I guess if you don't really know you're stuck in the mud and you don't have any great chanda or inspiration to practice, you're just like, yeah, it's comfortable, it's warm, it's okay. But once you recognize, oh God, I'm stuck in this mud and I want to get out. I want freedom. I don't want to be pulled in here all the time. That is an incentive for that chanda to arise, that zeal, that energy. And then that energy motivates, I want to say, I was going to say motivates your practice. But I'm a little bit cautious to use that word practice, because I think sometimes people think, oh, practice, that means I'm going to sit on a cushion and look really zen and be really peaceful and centered and equanimous. And sometimes practice is very intense. It depends what you're working with at any moment. But there's the practice to be present with what is arising, and to bring in tools, skillful means to meet what is arising and to endure what is difficult, so as not to keep on repeating it over and over again. So we can go in a different direction.
I like this concept of deconditioning. We have all this habit energy to respond as if we're the sock puppet of our ego. What you're recommending and what the Buddha recommended of this kind of radical move of like sitting with these feelings that we spend so much time running from, it creates new conditions. It deconditions the habit energy and creates the new condition of, yeah, I have this superpower, which is inside of me, to be able to sit with this stuff that I've told myself I can't sit with, but actually I can.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And it does become a superpower. Yes. And then as time goes by, I think when I first started to practice, I imagined that as you deepen in the practice, just less difficult things happen. Things get easier and nicer, and the people you're with get nicer to be with. But it isn't like that. It's just your capacity to be with things as they are is greater. So there's less suffering, and it's not like the world suddenly becomes all nice, and lotus flowers are blossoming everywhere you walk or anything like that. It's just like you're okay, and there's also a certain okayness with, or not okayness. There's a certain acceptance of the world is like this. The world is like this, and what am I bringing to it? How can I meet it in a way that's not adding to the chaos, the misery, the confusion? So that already that's another way of turning towards. There's another thing of the First Noble Truth that you keep pointing to. It's like turning towards things as they are, rather than the very high ideals of how we wish they were or how we wish we were. It's like, okay, let's just start from where we are.
Just for the uninitiated, the First Noble Truth, after the Buddha got enlightened, according to the teachings, after the Buddha got enlightened, he spent a while by himself, and then the first public utterance came when he was addressing some fellow spiritual travelers, mendicants, renunciates, and he explained the Four Noble Truths, the first of which is life is suffering, which...
Oh, not quite.
Well...
The first of which is there is suffering.
Okay. Suffering. Well, it's often translated as life is suffering.
Yeah, it's not quite correct.
Yeah, well, that's what I was just going to say, which is that it's not life. You're saying it's not life is, it's there is. And then suffering, I think, is also a bit of mistranslation, because it's really kind of like unsatisfactoriness.
It's a whole spectrum, actually. It starts from, unsatisfactoriness covers a broader spectrum, but it's from like the slightest little kind of meh to out and out suffering. It's that whole spectrum. So it's not saying life is suffering, but it's like there is dukkha. The word is dukkha, and that's like it's a little bit off. It's not. Yeah. It's uncomfortable. Yeah, it can be a little bit uncomfortable, or it can be like out and out suffering, because we have the capacity to experience that. Yes. So that was I'm actually really enjoying hearing you speaking about it. So I'd like you to carry on.
I don't know. At this point, I have nothing else to say. I mean, there are three other noble truths, but we don't necessarily need to go into them. But
I think we should actually. But yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, if we can. I'll say a bit, and you please. You're doing a great. I really appreciate how you gently correct me when I run afoul of the truth. The second noble truth is the source of suffering is tanha, which I believe is the Pali word. Roughly translate it into thirst. Often we translate it as desire, but that's it's a bit of a tricky word, because the Buddha's not saying you shouldn't want anything, I don't think. But thirst is a kind of like a clinging, grasping, craving. So when we are in a world that is non-negotiably in flux and entropy, and if you're clinging to things that are not going to last, that is going to produce suffering.
Yep.
The third noble truth is there's a way out of this elephant in the mud, and the fourth is the cookbook, the recipe. It's a list within a list. It's the Eightfold Path, and kind of divided up into sort of a cognitive stuff about right view, the right way to see the world. And meditative advice around like right mindfulness, right concentration, right effort, and then ethical stuff around right speech, action, and livelihood. How am I doing?
Yeah, good, very good. Yes.
I have good teachers.
Yes, you do indeed. And that First Noble Truth, it has, so each of those noble truths have three aspects, and so the first noble truth, there is dukkha. The words dukkha, let's call it unsatisfactoriness or discomfort, or however you want to call it, or suffering. The next piece is dukkha should be understood, and then dukkha has been understood. So this is what we're pointing to. Is like, okay, here it is, and then the knee-jerk reaction is to get away from it somehow, quick, blame it on somebody else, or self-medicate, or or spin out, or whatever it might be, so dukkha should be understood, and actually my teacher in England, Ajahn Sumedho, he used to say, stand under it, stand under dukkha, let it rain on you, let it just feel it, just let yourself be drenched by it. It's okay, and then that leads to understanding what causes it, letting go of the cause, and then it's not it can shift in the moment, but it's kind of a life path, really. But
yes,
it changes as we go along. Yeah.
Let me ask a clarifying question. So we started this conversation talking about centering, and then we went through 4 techniques for centering: being in nature, bringing your attention to your feet or some part of your body that is always in the present moment rather than spinning off into the past or the future, taking deep breaths, and then pause. I asked before, you right at the beginning of the conversation, well, what's the difference between centering and, equanimity or calm? Not very helpfully, I did not define either of those terms. But your answer in the moment was, well, the centering is kind of a necessary step on the path toward being calm and being equanimous. You can think of equanimity as like an okayness in the face of whatever happens. At least that's the way I think about it.
Yeah.
And so can you just say a little bit more about this trajectory from centering to
Thank you,
equanimity?
Yeah. In the present. So the body is always in the present. Centering in the body in the present gives us a place from which we can experience what's going on. It's like an anchor, you could say. And so also what I've been pointing to, we've both been speaking about, the seeing the repercussions of acting on difficult feelings. It's like it sets the whole thing rolling. So centering in the body gives us a place where we can feel those feelings, know them, and then we can reflect. We can reflect. If we can just be with, okay, my belly is feeling really tight right now, and my chest is a little trembly, and then take those deep breaths, putting your feet on the ground. So you're countering the tendency to just spin out, and then you're bringing your attention into a more stable place, and then you can reflect. So I think upekkha, equanimity, it can come through meditation practice. It's one of the things we can cultivate in meditation, and one can experience it in sort of more subtle states. But equanimity in the midst of the world is you need to find a place of centeredness. Sorry, I keep using the same word, but you need to find a place of centeredness from which you can see the whole crazy mess of it all that we create. So the calm, and maybe calm is a little misleading, because we can look for calm, we maybe want calm, but we're actually anxious. And if we're holding calm out as a carrot, then that can just create more and more anxiety. It can seem like endlessly far away. But it's more like the calm is found by being present, by being here, by being with things as they are. So it's like we're looking for something outside of ourselves, but where we really need to look is right here in this body and mind, in this body. And so it's like centering in the actual experience that is going on here and now, because that's more real than the thoughts that are going on in the mind, the projections in the future and the memories of the past. So what's going on right now is attuned with reality. And the more we're attuned with reality, the more we relax, and the more happy we are, actually, even in difficult times. And the more we're misattuned to reality, we can, you can be a happy delusional, actually. People who are very delusional can be very happy, but it's sort of it's not leading anywhere beneficial. So yeah, the more we're attuned to the truth of the way things are, then I don't know, it all starts to come into alignment. That word power comes back. There's a power in that. We'll feel it in our body. And then there's also the mind. The mind starts to potentially starts to see a greater reality, not just this narrow slice of reality that we see on the news, which is a bombardment of all of the terrible things that are going on, and maybe one or two nice, funny things or nice things. But actually, when we look at our life, is it actually like that, or are there good people? Are there, or even is there a tree, nearby that's endlessly producing oxygen through the day and taking up carbon dioxide and producing flowers and leaves and maybe even fruits. That's a good thing. So it's like getting out of the small. Upeka is getting out of the small story of me and mine in a way, but the small story into a bigger picture of the nature of things, of how things go.
Just picking up on the thing you said about the tree and the bigger picture, and there are actually a lot of things I want to come back to in your last set of paragraphs, but don't. You laughing? You think
I'm laughing because of the paragraphs. I just sort of ramble. I'm just rambling.
No, I was meant as a compliment, not as a backhanded insult. It was dense with goodness. So, but one of the things I want to just highlight from that. Do you remember in the 90s or the aughts, there was this very successful advertising campaign, I think on MTV, when MTV was, something that young people actually watched. And it was an anti-smoking campaign. And instead of lecturing kids about how bad it was for you, which never worked, it was they're trying to screw you. The big tobacco companies are trying to screw you.
I was actually not in the US and in a monastery, not watching TV, but I didn't watch those. But yes, that's the way.
I've thought basically the message of the ads was, you're being conned by they're selling you this image that cigarettes are glamorous, but actually, it's you're going to be you're going to get lung cancer or whatever. Here's what your lungs will look like.
Mm-hmm.
And I've thought there's some version of that we can do vis-a-vis the media. And I say this as a person who comes out of the belly of the beast. I was inside the box for a long time as a news anchor. But it's not just the news media, it's also the social media. Both the news media, which is a much smaller beast than social media, but both the people who do what I do and the algorithms on social media are trying to convince you things are worse than they are, because fear is sticky. Fear and anger get you scrolling. They keep you engaged. They blind you to the fact that there are good people quietly and with no attention whatsoever all over the place, teaching kids in school, cleaning up the streets, holding the door open for people, sending somebody a text just to say, I'm thinking of you. That shit is happening all around us all the time.
All the time.
And there's nothing on social media about it. And so it does, I don't know, I'm ranting at this point, but do you see where I'm going?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because we're caught. Yeah, we're caught. It's obviously very distressing. I mean, I'm with the people I meet anyway, very distressed by what's going on in the news, and yet keep looking. I guess it's a biological thing. If there's danger, you keep alert and you stay connected. But there is so much goodness. There's so much goodness in the world. So many, and just simple little things. A mother taking care of her child, and birds making nests right now in the springtime. It's just like it's going on everywhere. And again, nature. Not that nature's all sweet and lovely. I mean, it isn't. And everything eats everything else, but there's a sanity to it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a sanity, yeah. And we seem to have lost that, the human race, to a large degree. But we are nature, so we can come back to it.
And to be clear, I don't think either of us is trying to downplay the severity of what's happening in the world, the severity of the risks facing the species, from political unrest to AI to climate. It's just that, yes, and there's just a lot of other stuff.
And I think it's important to say that, because it's not about just, look at all the lovely things in the world. But if we never look at those things, we lose our connection with our humanity in a way, and with each other. And I think that's where the potential for change lies, for the better, is in us really connecting with our own humanity and our connection with nature, and recognizing that we can do something, we can do good, but not one individual can do a little bit, but together we have much more potential. But if we stay frozen or powerless or hopeless in the eyes of what the media, or through seeing what the media puts out, then we're our chances are much less, I think, of doing well.
I said there were a few things that I wanted to go back to from your lovely soliloquy just a moment ago, which I understand why took as maybe me criticizing you for saying too much, but that's absolutely not what I was doing.
I actually wasn't. I just want to say I didn't think you criticized me. I was laughing at the paragraphs, because it's like my mind doesn't really think in paragraphs. So it was just that. That's what I was laughing at.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
That makes me feel better. Okay, so anyway, one of the other things I just wanted to clarify is this connection between, I want to see if I can restate your assertion back to you and just make sure that I understand it, and by extension that the audience understands it. So again, we started by talking about centering, which I think is really, really important. And I think what you're saying is centering it's like finding some place safe to be, instead of outsourcing our consciousness to the gyre of the media. So it can be in nature, it can be in your body, it can be in your breath, which of course is almost pretty much the same thing. It can be in a pause, and that is the step toward equanimity, because it allows you. In fact, I was thinking, and I think this is true, upekkha, which is the Pali word for equanimity, I think is roughly translated into like seeing over. It's like having seeing the bigger picture. And so once you're centered, you can conjure some wisdom. It's like, oh yeah, this is it. This is the cycle of suffering that the Buddha described in the First Noble Truth, and you can relax into it. That doesn't mean you like it, but you can navigate it more sanely. So am I describing this process accurately?
Yes, that's good. Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to nature then.
Should I have said a little bit more? I could say a bit more about that if you like.
Please, sure.
Sorry.
Give me some paragraphs.
All right. Yeah, upekkha is. I mean, it's interesting for me that you can't. I guess from I want to speak about centeredness, and then you're also bringing in upekkha, or equanimity. And this is something that needs a little bit of care, I feel, equanimity, because it's the English word. It sounds like everything's supposed to be even all the time, and you're not supposed to feel anything much, and you're not supposed to get moved by things, and that's not real, is it? It's like life doesn't line up with that. And so so that translation of a bird's eye view I find really, really good, because the bird's eye view, so it's including the bird. So there's the bird that's seeing the bigger picture of things, and that could be on a time level. So I find that one of the ways that it can be helpful to bring up a sense of upekkha or evenness with things as they are is to look on like level of time. So several people have said, yeah, this stuff's been going on forever. This was the Buddha gave these teachings because those things were going on then in the Buddha's time, and Iron Age India, that's what was happening, and it's been happening ever since, and it's still happening. And it's just we haven't had it so much on our doorstep, although we've been part of it in America for many years, and other people's doorsteps. But now it's getting more real on our own doorsteps. But it's not anything new. This is part of what we do as people. as humans. So seeing it over that time scale can be helpful. And I've also found, I don't know if you ever you're in the countryside, whether you ever just go outside and look at the sky, like at night. And it's so vast, and then those little tiny dots, those tiny little stars, and it's like, wow, those are suns. And the Milky Way, sometimes you can see the Milky Way, it's like, oh, that's like looking through it's like a slice of the galaxy, and if you can allow your mind to open in that way, which this is something that you don't see in cities, actually. When you live in a city, you don't see that perspective because all the light pollution, you don't see the sky in the same way. But if you can get out of the human-made environment for a minute or for a night and look up at that sky, and then get a sense of, oh yeah, so those stars, they're like little suns up there, many of them, and then this, then there's our sun, which is massive compared to our planet, and then there's our planet, and then there's this continent that we're on, and then there's this little tiny point on this continent where there's this little tiny person who's feeling so many feelings about what's going on. So I find that really helps. It's just like, oh, it really puts things into perspective. Oh, it's is it so serious? Is it? I'm not saying is the situation we're moving into more so serious, but is the thing that we're fearing or thinking about or feeling, how does that measure up in the context of the cosmos? Now that, I mean, it gets wild, when you start going in that direction, because you talk about the galaxy, and then there's like, now that they've discovered there's probably trillions of galaxies in the universe, it's like, it's impossible to even conceive that, and then there's this one little spot here with a feeling going on in it, that we feel like we can't quite manage. You're like, well, maybe we can.
My teacher, Joseph Goldstein, talks about viewing what he calls the earthbound madness through the lens of Venus.
Oh, that's
the perspective
beautiful.
of Venus.
I like that. Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah. Just in our remaining minutes here, I do want to go back to nature for a second, because you said something when you were talking about nature as a source of centeredness that I made a note to follow up on. You keep using this phrase, "we are nature," which I love. And I use it a lot in my own practice. The way I often phrase it, and this is as I was taught by another teacher of mine, Alexis Santos, who's a student of Sayadaw U Tejaniya. Yeah, and he has a phrase that he uses in his teaching. This is nature. Everything in this experience in my mind right now, everything I'm seeing, taking in, thinking, it's all nature. There's no separation. You said something about, you made a passing reference to our true nature and said, well, we may not want to talk about that, but our true nature. And I do want to talk about that. So can you go there, please?
It's tricky to talk about, isn't it? It's one of those things that you can't really define, actually. So as I was saying those words, I was thinking, probably shouldn't have said that because it's hard to speak about. Is it this body, these feelings, these perceptions, thoughts, sense experiences, is that our true nature? It's tricky to go there, really. I'm not quite sure how to speak about it in this context of a podcast with people who maybe don't have a deep practice.
Well, many of these people do have deep practice.
Do they?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the Buddha does say that the true nature of the mind is luminous and bright. And it gets obscured by the kilesa or the obscuration. So that could be like clouds passing over the sun. So the nature of our mind is bright, luminous, open, compassionate, present, and that's its true nature. And then we somehow forget that, and we believe that we are the thoughts and the feelings and the body and the personality and maybe, the history, the story that we have. We mistake that for what we truly are. And as long as we're holding on to that stuff, as long as we're holding, if I'm really identified with this body as being me, it's dukkha. It's stressful because this body's doing what it's doing. It's changing. It's aging. It's gets sick. It gets well. It's not necessarily the way I'd like it to look, or as fit as I wish it was, or flexible, whatever it is. But it is what it is. This is just nature doing this arising, this Anandabodhiing over here right now, danning over there. So nature's doing that, and then the habits and patterns of thought that we have, that are conditioned. So when we come in as little babies, if you think of a newborn baby, it's just open. It comes in with karma. From a Buddhist perspective, it's not like, every mother sees that every child is different. We come in with our own tendencies, but there's this openness. It's just like wide open. And then we learn things as we grow, and we learn that we're not just openness, and we can't just be open and at one with our mother and with everything. It doesn't. You start to notice that there's separation, and that things don't always go our way, and we have to sort of separate, individuate, and that's part of the process of life. It's just essential, and in that process we create these protections, which might be thoughts about our smallness or our greatness, or they might be thoughts. It might be fears, contractions. It might be rage. It might be greed. Always trying to fill the hole in ourselves with something nice from outside. So we do all those things because we've forgotten our true nature. And they kind of make it a little bit easier for a minute, but only for a minute. It doesn't really work. So coming back to our true nature is what we find when we settle. And well, first of all, there is that clearing out of the garage that I was talking about earlier. We've got to clear out some of, if we've got a lot of regrets, done a lot of harm, then you've got to start repairing that. So when I first moved to the monastery, I was in my early 20s, I recognized I've done quite a few things I kind of don't feel great about, and I've left some things with people that bad relationships in bad repair. So I took time to repair those things, as though I actually kind of went into that first year of monastic life as though, okay, I've only got this year of my life, and I don't know what's going to happen after this, so I just want to sort out as much as I can. And so I wrote to people and acknowledged and apologized, and those who I couldn't contact, I just did it in my heart and acknowledged my fault and apologized. And so there's the clearing out of things that we might be carrying that we have remorse over, and then there's the patterns of protection that we've created. That is kind of a large part of the work, really, is finding them, discovering what they are, feeling them, learning how to transform them, like you're doing with the elevator, learning how to transform them, and then ultimately letting them go. And like with those big fears, what's the biggest fear of all?
Death.
Mm-hmm. Death. So if we can embrace death, if we can acknowledge we're going to die, this body's going to die, there's no way around that. That's going to happen sooner or later. There's no way around that. So if we can befriend that truth and know that this body will have to die, and this personality will die along with it. And from, the perspective of the spiritual path, the consciousness or the presence or awareness, it doesn't die along with you. So this is where we get into tricky territory, because for a fully enlightened one, you get into kind of rebirth and consciousness and letting go. So from a Buddhist perspective, for an arahant or a fully enlightened being, they lay down the khandhas or the aggregates, the the components of a person. They lay it down. There's no more when they pass away. There's no more like looking for something else. But for those of us who haven't really fully let go of identification and craving, which is probably most of us here, then that craving carries on. That identification, it looks for something to take birth in. It keeps looking. So, and we can experience that in a day, in a week. It's wake up in the morning, and how immediately as you wake up, the mind might just be open, and then there's me, and there's my schedule, and there's what I'm supposed to do, and so we quickly fill that up with who we are and what we're doing and where we're going, and it's kind of similar on a level of the mind's doing that, and that kind of carries on. But if we can befriend death, then we're absolutely, there's nothing to fear. And it's not only having nothing to fear, but also because being fearless can be a little crazy, if it's not balanced. But there's also the fact that, we're human, and every other human being on this planet is human, and people have got different levels of clarity and of lostness, and yet we share this same basic humanity and also same potential for awakening. Everybody has it, and we're part of every living being on this planet. Every creature that's breathing, we're sharing the breath. Every plant is breathing. Without plants, we wouldn't be breathing. So we're breathing together with everything all the time. So we're part of everything. So there's like death at the end of our life, and then there's losing oneself in the allness of everything right now, which is such a wonderful relief. And we don't have to be this person alone, isolated, struggling through life, And I think we fear that if we let go, we won't be able to function properly, then we won't be able to, we won't know what to do, and how are we going to, I think that the head is very much like that, the intellect, the ego as well, it's like, but I'm really important, without me, it's not going to work. But most of what's going on is beyond us. Do we know how we digested breakfast this morning? I don't know how that happened, actually, but it's happened.
Could you pick your pancreas out of a lineup?
Probably not. And how is this is all happening? It's nature. The truth is, when we really let go into our true nature, then true nature is living through us, and true nature has the qualities of presence, clarity, compassion, wisdom. So that is able to live through us more fully, rather than all of the stuff, the little person story.
I'm going to do my little thing of checking to see if I have understood you. I'm going to add in some of the way I think about this, but with the caveat that I am not a Buddhist scholar, I'm not a nun or a monk, and so I may be making all sorts of cognitive and spiritual errors here. But in the Dharma, they talk about the three marks of existence, these three things that are true about the universe, and part of practicing meditation and practicing the Dharma is to come into a relationship with these three marks of existence. One is impermanence. We talked about it a lot. Everything's changing all the time. The second is suffering, that, if you're constantly trying to gather all of your loved ones and the abs you had in your 30s and your bank account into your bosom, it's going to be really frustrating and stressful, because those things are changing and your body's changing, and it's a fool's errand in many ways. And if you can relax into those two marks of existence, you might see that beneath it all, beneath the things that obscure our clear view of what's happening, is that it's all nature, that there is no self that we need to build up and defend. Yes, it's true that we both have ID cards and Instagram accounts or whatever it is. Like, we do exist on one level, but on a fundamental level, there is no core nugget of Dan or Ayya Anandabodhi, and there's an enormous amount of rest and peace in having that experience, either as a little glimpse or as a kind of upgrade of the software that is a more abiding understanding of that. So that's kind of my bootleg version of what you said. But am I? Would you say I'm close?
Yes, very much so. Yeah, it's lovely to hear you say those. Yeah, yeah. Yes, and with the third one, so I think the first two are relatively easy to understand, and the third one can be a little bit hard to understand. And another way I would put it would be what we take to be me and mine is a process, an ever-changing, interrelated process.
Yes. Yes, in this way, the three marks of existence fold back in on one another and help you understand.
Yes.
You can understand this brain-breaking concept of not self through the lens of impermanence.
Yes, they're like three lenses to the same truth.
Yeah, yeah. For me, and everybody kind of, to the extent that anybody ever gets to understand any of this, everybody's got their own way. But for me, it kind of goes in that order of impermanence, suffering, not self. But for some people, like, just to have an intuitive sense of this non-duality, there is no separation between you and nature, you are nature, and then they hit on the other marks of existence from there.
Yes, different people have different avenues. That's right. Yeah, it's cool, isn't it? It's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Deep truth. Yeah, and ever present.
Yep. May I ask you my two habitual final questions? One is there something you were hoping we would get to that we didn't get to?
I think we've covered a lot of good ground.
Even though it's all groundless. And then the final question is, if people want to learn more from you, how can they do so? What do you have a website that people can go to? Where can we get? Do you have Dharma talks that are recorded that we can listen to?
Yes, I have Dharma talks on Dharma Seed, which people may be familiar with already, and I have a website. It's Pārāyana Vihāra.org.
If you don't have a pen, listener, I'm going to drop links to Ayya Anandabodhi's Dharma talks on this excellent website, Dharma Seed, which collects hours and hours of Dharma talks from brilliant teachers all over the world. And I will also drop a link to her website.
Thank you. And I actually do want to come back to your first question. I'm sorry.
Sure.
I have touched on this in our conversation, but I think one piece that I haven't really emphasized is the importance of compassion for oneself and for others, and to really understand the struggles, of being a human being, and even those people in power who may be really difficult to feel compassion for. If you look at what they're doing from a big perspective, they're deeply lost. It's a very sad situation to be so far from one's, from basic goodness, like wanting to help people in trouble, or support poor people, support inclusivity, and to be so far from that deserves a certain amount of compassion. It's because we're all part of the same arising here.
Well, it won't surprise you to hear that I totally agree. This gentleman from a different tradition, the Jesuit tradition, Father Gregory Boyle, who I was turned on to actually by Joseph Goldstein, and has been on this show before. He once said here on the show, I don't believe in evil, but I do believe in bad behavior. And
yes.
The bad behavior is usually the result of trauma or mental illness or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to meet you, albeit virtually, and to listen to your paragraphs.
Thank you. No, it's been lovely to meet you too. And also, I just really appreciate it, because I haven't been following you. I know of your name, but I've not listened to podcasts or watched anything until this invitation came up, actually, to be honest. And so I sort of skimmed through a few things over the years, and you've been very public in your process. And, and I actually kind of I found that interview with, I didn't watch the whole thing, but I found that interview with the Dalai Lama and not realizing that was really, really old. And I was like, well, I'm not sure about this guy. Do I really want to do an interview with him? And then I found some further on things and I'm like, this is so great, that you've somehow, that your path has been to very publicly go through this spiritual awakening, really, isn't it? To a certain degree, this transformation is quite touching.
Thank you. Yeah. That is it's funny. During the course of this interview, I've been trying to do this thing of restating your message back to you just to make sure it's clear. You just basically restated my entire career back to me.
Well, it's inspiring. Yeah, it's a gift.
Well, I'm the primary beneficiary.
Well, you're sharing it very generously.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you too.